The story I'm about to tell you happened 12 years ago when I was a teenager, and from that day on, I have never slept a single night without a nightmare. In November 2011, we moved from Stamford to an old rural town near Cornwall and Dudleytown in Connecticut called Oakridge. My dad got a new job as a counselor in the town, so I had to give up everything in Stamford, including most of my friends. Oakridge is nearly 100 miles away from Stamford, so it felt like I was saying goodbye to an entire chapter of my life. My parents always tried to cheer me up, saying it was a good thing, a fresh start away from the city and its noise. But deep down, I knew the truth. My dad had lost his job in Stamford, and now we were stuck in this old, creepy town with nowhere to go. I was just a 12-year-old kid who wasn't exactly cheerful even when we lived in Stamford. It had taken me a long time to make a few friends there, and now I had to start all over again. Oakridge is a very small town with a tight community, surrounded by dark oak trees and a massive forest on all sides. The town itself has a creepy, lonely vibe. It's shrouded in many folklores going back a few centuries, especially since its establishment near Dudleytown around the same period. Since we moved here, I was alone most of the time, even in school, and making friends was tough. Not to mention, our house was nearly on the other side of town and had few neighbors. One of them is the grumpy old man, Mr. Martinez. After a lonely couple of weeks, it was nearly Thanksgiving, and I didn't get any invitations for any parties. I wanted to make friends and have fun, but instead, I was stuck at home with my parents. On Thanksgiving morning, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. If we were in Stamford, we would have friends, and maybe Uncle Frank and Aunt Lori would also come to the party. Then suddenly, I heard the front bell ringing and ran to check. Maybe Mr. Martinez? Or could be someone from the school. I opened the door, but there was no one, except for an envelope on the floor. There was no information on the front or back, but it was decorated with red ribbons.
Lucas, who was it?
I don't know, Mom, but look what I found. Someone left it on the floor.
We both peered outside, but couldn't see anyone.
Okay, let's open it.
Dear Mr. and Mrs. Brown, we extend a warm invitation to join us for this year's Thanksgiving celebration at 616 Maple Avenue, Oakridge. Your presence would be a delightful addition to our gathering as we welcome new members to our community. Warm regards, Mr. Reginald.
It was a simple invitation to a Thanksgiving party today. I can't believe someone actually invited us. We don't know many people in the town yet. The address was a few miles away from the house, so I urged my parents to go there. They didn't like the idea at first, considering it was a sudden invitation, but then again, I guess they wanted to make me happy. And now, I wish I could somehow go back in time and change this decision. I dragged my parents there, and it was all my fault from the beginning. The sun started setting low, and the town was shrouded with darkness sooner than Stamford, mostly because of the tall, massive forest in every corner of the town. We were heading to Mr. Reginald's house on Maple Avenue, and I was so happy that I would get to brag about this at school the next day. At least I wouldn't feel left out then. The road to Mr. Reginald's house seemed covered with massive oak trees, giving off a creepy vibe. My mom had prepared a few gifts, and they were next to me in the back seat. The entire road was completely silent, with no wind at all, and it felt like it was dead inside. Half an hour later, we found the address and the entrance covered by a massive, ancient-looking gate. It surely had to be an old house, but looked like it had been recently renovated. But the gate still had a creepy old look, though. There were a few vehicles parked near the house, so I was getting excited. All the windows emitted a warm, yellow, cozy light from inside, and I could hear people talking and laughing. The door was open, so we entered the house. and a skinny, tall old man who looked like a grandpa wearing loose clothes stood in the other corner of the hallway, looking at us and smiling. He didn't even flinch a muscle. For a second, I thought he was a statue, but then he came to us joyfully.
Well, come on in. You must be the Brown family, am I right? I'm Reginald. It's a pleasure to finally meet you all.
Mr. Reginald, thanks a lot for having us over.
No problem at all. And who's this little guy?
Lucas, why don't you say hi properly?
I'm Lucas Brown. Nice to meet you, Mr. Reginald.
He looked into my eyes and smiled. He felt really nice and gentle.
Hey everyone, make yourselves at home. The table's in the next room. Enjoy, y'all.
There were a couple of other people we had never seen before, and for some reason no one came to speak with us. But I think I know why now, and when I remember that, I still get creeped out. Since my mom and dad went to the other room, I decided to explore more of the house. On the outside, it didn't seem this big, but inside it was massive. It looked well planned with really nice decorations and lights. For sure, this house was recently fixed up. While looking at the tall, massive pictures on the walls, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, and there was Mr. Reginald smiling at me.
What are you up to, kiddo?
Just checking out the place, Mr. Reginald. Your house looks pretty cool.
Yeah? Interested in a little tour?
I would have said yes, but then I heard my mom calling me. Mr. Reginald looked a bit disappointed, but he graciously stepped aside, allowing me to head toward the next hall.
Lucas,
He called out as I passed him in the hallway.
I'm glad you convinced your parents to come here. I didn't think you three would make it.
I didn't reply and just smiled. I mean, I was a 12-year-old kid, and of course I didn't understand it around that time, but I should have. How the hell did he know I convinced my parents to come to the party? A few hours later, we all sat at the table, eating and talking. Mr. Reginald didn't seem to eat much. Looking at him, I thought that's why he was so skinny. I had a good time, ate a lot, and saw a few people cheering and smiling, even though not many of them talked to us. When the party was over, my dad and mom thanked him.
Thanks, Mr. Reginald, for having us here.
He looked at my parents and smiled.
We are one community. If you need any help, just let me know.
Then he turned to me and asked,
Did you have a good time, Lucas?
Yes, it was really fun.
I will miss you when you leave.
Mr. Reginald's face turned to sadness. It seemed he was living alone in the house, with no wife, no kids, no one at all. Just an old man in the massive house.
Why don't you come to our house one day? We can hang out.
Mr. Reginald's eyes sparked with light. He seemed genuinely happy.
That would be great, Lucas. Thank you for inviting me to your house.
He smiled. I felt a sudden chill when he smiled, but I just brushed it off. We started heading back home, and it was almost midnight. Only a few houses on the road had lights left on. The rest of the town was shrouded in darkness. Within half an hour or so, we were back at the house. Dad parked the car and we opened the front door. A sudden bad smell hit us like it was spoiled meat or something rotten inside the house. Dad turned on the lights in the living room, and I could see there were lots of flies all over the place. My parents' faces became very confused. The house was perfect when we left. Then we heard a clanking noise from the kitchen and the dining table. It looked like someone was there. I got really terrified and couldn't understand what was going on. My father slowly went to the kitchen, signaling us to stay in the living room. My mom and I were waiting in the living room, looking terrified. Now I couldn't see what was happening, but I saw the light turn on in the kitchen, so Dad must have turned them on.
Mr. Reginald, what are you doing here? How did you come here?
My dad's voice was trembling, like he was seeing a ghost. Then I heard Mr. Reginald's calm, gentle sound.
Lucas invited me, right, Lucas?
I couldn't see him from the living room, but he was talking to me from the kitchen. Mom was terrified and holding me tight, and honestly, I didn't know what to do. Neither did my mom, I guess. The next second, I heard some unnatural cracking and clicking noise, similar to when you snap old wood or when you crack your fingers for fun. Lights started flickering, and a sudden cold ran down through my body. While my mom and I gazed at the kitchen entrance, we saw my dad slowly walking backward. His eyes were massive, filled with fear. He was looking at something terrifying. And then something dark grabbed him and dragged him to the kitchen, and his painful screams echoed through my ears. Mom immediately tried to open the front door, but it was locked somehow. There was no other way to escape, so we ran to the staircase to my bedroom, and Mom hid me under the bed with her trembling hands.
Shh. Lucas, don't come out.
Her voice trembled with fear.
I will come back for you, okay? Stay here. Don't make any sound.
I was under the bed, drowned in fear, tears streaming down from my cheeks, trying not to make a sound by squeezing my mouth shut. I heard my mom's footsteps heading down to the living room, slowly. Then I heard Mr. Reginald's calm voice.
Thank you for having me here, Mrs. Jane. I truly appreciate it.
No, please leave us alone. No!
Then I heard my mom screaming from the living room. I was so terrified I couldn't even move. Everything went silent for a few seconds. Then I heard the footsteps, heavy ones, coming slowly up the stairs.
Lucas, no need for fear, son. Your mom and dad are waiting for you downstairs.
Then I heard my mom calling me from downstairs.
Lucas, come here. It's just Mr. Reginald, don't worry.
I crawled out from under the bed and slowly stepped outside the room. But the next thing I saw continued to haunt my nightmares, even to this day. A tall, dark, slender figure standing on the staircase, looking at me with a haunting smile. The next moment, it lunged at me. Its cold fingers wrapping around me in a suffocating grip, and everything went dark. This took place 12 years ago, and every detail, every scream, every scent from that day is still vivid in my memory. I don't know how I survived that encounter with the skinny, dark monster, but later found out Mr. Martinez heard the screams. He ran to our house to check and found me on the living room floor, next to my mom's body. He might be the reason I live to tell the story today. Both of my parents were found dead, and they didn't let me see them, but I heard both of them had turned pale white and their eyes were gone. On the other hand, I'm glad I didn't see them that way. There's no one named Mr. Reginald, and the house we went to was completely abandoned, decayed, and covered with the forest. No one had lived there for at least a century. All the people we witnessed seemed either dead or non-existent at all. It was like we were in a dream that day, except my family was murdered. Whatever happened in Oakridge haunted me forever, and I think I'm ready to find out the truth. I'm sharing this story while heading back to Oakridge, and yes, I'm not alone. I have someone who specialized in this and needs all the help I can get. I don't know if this will be safe.
No worries, Lucas. It's not the first time I've dealt with stuff like this.
All right then, let's hope we can finally put an end to this. Thanks for having my back, Alan.